This week, Americana on Tour takes us to Cody, Wyoming, and an in-depth look at a man we know as Buffalo Bill Cody. With the help of Paul Fees, curator of the Buffalo Bill Museum, rare silent films from the turn of the century, and a special guest closer to Buffalo Bill than any other living person, we will get to know this great American folk hero. Perhaps no single figure looms larger in the history of the American West than Colonel William F. Buffalo Bill Cody. But behind this legend of the West was a real, genuine person whom few have seen, a person we were fortunate enough to meet through the eyes of his last remaining grandson, Bill Garlow Cody.
Dan, it was Billy Cody, the boy, who made the man who became so famous all over the world as Buffalo Bill. Billy Cody was only 14 years old when he rode the Pony Express. He made the longest continuous ride of the Pony Express in the history of that great endeavor and got a lot of publicity from it. He was a teenage guide and scout for all the famous generals, and when he was only 21 years old, he was awarded not only the contract but the responsibility of providing the buffalo meat for the crews that laid the first rails across our nation. And all this national publicity enabled him to put together the largest traveling show in the history of the world.
The Wild West Show was the product of Cody's real-life experience of the West and the theatrical ability perfected through years on the popular stage. We spoke with Paul Fees, curator of the Buffalo Bill Museum, about Cody's evolution from stage actor to international superstar.
In 1872, on a trip to New York, Cody saw himself portrayed on the New York stage by an actor named J.B. Studley. A dime novel writer named Ned Buntline had written a play based very, very loosely on Buffalo Bill's life, and had called it Buffalo Bill, King of Bordermen. Cody was not persuaded at the time to appear on stage. It was foreign to him, and he was rather shy about it. But later, after he got to thinking about it, and after he had had a chance to consider some of the amateur theatricals that he was able to see in the West, was persuaded by Ned Buntline to go on to Chicago and take a fling at theater. I think one of the people who helped persuade him was Texas Jack Omohundro, a partner of his on the plains, and someone who did have theatrical aspirations. You know, Omohundro went to Chicago, teamed up with Ned Buntline, who is said to have written a play in less than 24 hours. The critics said they didn't know what he was doing all that time. But it was a success with the crowds, and Cody's old commander and most of the Army officers of the Division of the Missouri headed there in Chicago showed up for performances, gave it their imprimatur, and it became a popular smash hit. He toured just about every season after that, after 1873, with his own theatrical group.
Colonel Cody had produced a spectacle of monumental proportions. From 1883 until its closing in 1913, audiences the world over were treated to a close-up view of the American frontier. Bill, tell us about the Wild West Show.
Oh, it's tremendous. Of course, he had all these horses and everything, and it was the first rodeo, really, in America, together with the Indians and Indian fighting, the stagecoaches, and he did a lot of trick shooting. He had trick ropers, trick riders. It was, and he tried to depict the Old West the way it was, so that the people in the East and across Europe kind of had a better understanding of what happened in the Indian Age here in America. At the peak of the show, there were over 650 in the show, including 250 of the Indians. Many of the famous Indians, such as American Horse, even Sitting Bull, traveled with the Wild West Show all across the United States, 30 years, 7 years across the continent of Europe, into Russia, Turkey, Romania, Greece, Italy, you name it. And at Queen Victoria's Golden Jubilee, she made a command performance upon the show and invited all the royalty of Europe to come to meet this man who had become so famous as Buffalo Bill. And at the turn of the century, there's no question he was the most photographed and best known American in all the world. Cody's entourage included two of the world's most famous sharpshooters.
Legend has it that after the death of his own son, Kit Carson Cody, the colonel adopted the neighboring rancher's son. Under Cody's tutelage, Baker was transformed from ranch hand to a world-class exhibition shooter. The colonel further expressed his trust and affection for his protege by appointing him operations manager of the show, a position he faithfully executed for the entire history of the exposition. Special guest star Annie Oakley, Little Miss Sure Shot, traveled with the show with her husband manager Frank Butler. She was one of Buffalo Bill's favorite stars, and she may have been responsible for the colonel's belief that women should be given equal pay for equal work.
Perhaps the most significant single event in Buffalo Bill's life occurred in 1876, and there's a little exhibit in the Buffalo Bill Museum that tries to explain that. He was already a matinee idol. He had been on stage by that time for almost 4 years. He'd won a Congressional Medal of Honor by that time in 1872. And yet there in 1876, matinee idol, he was called back by his old commander, General E.A. Carr, to help guide the 5th Cavalry during the great summer that has become known as the Summer of the Custer Battle, or the Summer of the Great Sioux Wars. The 5th Cavalry was assembling at Fort Laramie, and they wanted Cody at the head. He rejoined them in time for Wesley Merritt to take over command. The 5th Cavalry then went on a forced march to intercept a group of Cheyennes that were attempting to join the victorious Sioux and Cheyennes at the Little Bighorn, and the 5th Cavalry cut them off. During the engagement, Cody led a small squad of frontiersmen and soldiers to intercept a like squad of Indians and fired first. He and the leading Indian, a man named Yellowhair, whose name was mistranslated later as Yellowhand, fired at each other first. Cody's shot was true. They fired at each other a second time, and Cody ended up killing Yellowhand, taking his scalp, which he called the first scalp for Custer, and thereby merging the theatrical with the real. There is a sense of purpose and drama to what he did, but also there's just a remarkable coming together of history and fiction in one person. What happened after that is that Buffalo Bill became, in a sense, more than human to his audiences. He became a symbol for the West, and everything that he said, everything he brought to the public in his Wild West show after that was seen as a truth. And in fact, one newspaper lamenting the demise of the Wild West show in 1913 called the Wild West a show of the truth as it was. So it's that central event that helped make the message that Buffalo Bill took, that narrative that he took to the public in his Wild West show, so real to them.
The Wild West show toured from 1883 to 1908. In 1908, for a variety of reasons, Cody merged his Wild West with his old friend Pawnee Bill's Far East, creating a show known as The Two Bills.
There's an interesting irony in the subsequent merger of Buffalo Bill's and Pawnee Bill's shows, and that is that Pawnee Bill was a member of the very first Buffalo Bill's Wild West. He was an interpreter from Oklahoma who brought a contingent of Pawnee Indians with him to the show. Later, Pawnee Bill tried a variety of shows. In fact, while a lot of people think Buffalo Bill went bankrupt in Europe, he didn't, but Pawnee Bill did. But Pawnee Bill was a good showman and a good businessman, and by 1906 or 7 had one of the premier Wild West shows still touring. Cody's show was in need of a partner because Cody's old partners, Nate Salisbury and James A. Bailey of Barnum and Bailey, had both died. Cody himself, while a competent businessman and very good at organizing and directing his show, was tired of trying to handle all the details himself, and rather than engage in the kinds of booking wars and advertising wars that those shows commonly did, he and Pawnee Bill got together on very good terms. And beginning in 1908, they began running their shows together as Buffalo Bill's Wild West and Pawnee Bill's Great Far East, but it was known to most people as the Two Bills Show. They also successfully marketed some motion pictures together, the Buffalo Bill and Pawnee Bill Motion Picture Company, mostly of Wild West show footage, to try to take advantage of the rage for motion pictures. But also trying some more elaborate theatrical ventures, including a Life of Buffalo Bill on film. So they had an interesting and mutually beneficial partnership.
Even before the merger, Buffalo Bill's Wild West was the world's largest extravaganza. Featuring over 600 horsemen, a trainload of livestock, equipment, and a seating capacity of 20,000 people, the Wild West show had become a logistical nightmare.
The logistics of the Wild West show were staggering, and it's a real tribute to Buffalo Bill and his managers that they were able to pull off what they pulled off. They had as many as 600 or 700 people touring at any one time with them, and a like number of livestock and wild animals. Buffalo and elk were often taken along with the show. They fed those people 3 hot meals a day with food that they had foraged, that they'd bought locally in each place they visited. During some years, they did one-night stands. They'd do one night in a town, pack the show up, go to the next place, set up, run it again, all the while, of course, giving 3 hot meals a day to all of the performers, doing all of their own ammunition loading, all of their own barbering, all of their own veterinary work, generating their own electricity for their own electric lights. A tremendous, tremendous undertaking. When they were in Europe in the 1890s, Annie Oakley said in her diary that the Kaiser had dispatched agents to watch the handling of the show so that he could get a handle on how better to run his armies. Whether that's so or not, it is true that the logistics of the show, that the setting up of the show and the feeding of all the cast were probably of as much interest to crowds in England as the show itself. Remarkable undertaking.
Despite the numerous difficulties in operating a show of this magnitude, the Wild West show proved a financial success, playing to capacity crowds.
You know, an amazing thing, Granddad was very, very successful with the Wild West show. At times he made all kinds of money. At the Chicago World's Fair in 1893, he made over $3 million. And he took the $3 million, came out the West here, invested in gold mines, drilling of oil wells, building the Irma Hotel, building the TE ranch and the ranches. He was instrumental in bringing all the reclamation into this part of Wyoming. And but yet, on the other hand, there were times when he was in financial straits. He spent his money to develop the West. I think that's one of the most overlooked phases of his life. He was truly a builder of the West.
When I was growing up, I learned a lot by watching my dad. Dad was a State Farm agent for 25 years, and I've become a State Farm agent too. Being there for others is a tremendous responsibility. I take a lot of pride in doing the proper job for other people, like every State Farm agent. People tell me I'm just like my dad. That's just fine with me.
And like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
I'm State Farm agent Jeff Libby. One of the most gratifying parts of my job is helping young parents, people who are just beginning to understand what life insurance is all about. Young couples don't need a sales talk. They just need to talk to someone who understands them and their life insurance needs. Now, I know what that promise of security means, and I don't believe there's a better promise a parent can make.
State Farm sells life insurance.
Bill, despite the yellow hair incident, your grandfather was known both as a fearless fighter and a great friend of the American Indian.
Yes, it's an amazing thing, Dan, but here, most of these Indians that were with the Wild West show had just fought the white man just a few years before. But Granddad was able to recruit them and go on this tour with him because they knew him to be fair. He went to Washington, fought for their rights, fought for their treaties. Golly, even after he died, and my mother and father passed away, I was adopted by my grandmother Cody, and I can remember getting up in the morning and out on the lawn of the house here in Cody. The lawn would be just full of Indians coming over, even after he'd passed away. He was truly loved by the Indian.
Wonderful. Your granddad has often been maligned as the slaughterer of the buffalo. Bill, can you tell us a little bit about the buffalo and the history?
Well, of course, the buffalo were killed off by hide hunters. And at about the turn of the century, they were about extinct. Now, Granddad, of course, did his share of killing of the buffalo, but it was for feeding the crews that laid the first rails across our country. And he was not a hide hunter in any way, manner, shape, or form. He did have special trips for dignitaries like the Duke Alexis of Russia, who came over on a buffalo hunt. He did have buffalo in the Wild West show, and right at the turn of the century, he donated to the Yellowstone National Park some of the buffalo that he had in the Wild West show. And with these buffalo, plus a few that was donated by somebody from over in South Dakota, gave the nucleus for the herd of buffalo that you see here in the Yellowstone Park now. When I was a kid, we used to come up here and go over into the Bar Basin just to see the buffalo, and maybe we'd see 8 or 10 or 12 of them, and now they're here by the hundreds. And so the buffalo is well preserved. There are buffalo today all over the United States. I've seen them in Oklahoma, I've seen them in Pennsylvania, I've seen them all over. So there's no danger of us losing this herd of bison, is what they should be called, but they're not.
When life on the road grew strenuous, Colonel Cody many times longed for a quiet place to be away from the crowds. In a letter dated July 1903 from Bristol, England, he wrote his sister, "Dear Julia, I'm here in my car. It's Sunday. I do not go to hotels anymore, for I haven't the strength to be even talked to. The only ray of pleasure I have is when I get to thinking of the dear old T.E. and the rest I'm going to get there."
We used to come up, I remember coming up these roads, of course they were nothing but a wagon train, but we had a chug-along automobile, and we'd make it all the way from Cody out here, and it'd take maybe 5 or 6 hours to make it, but we'd come out and enjoy the T.E. ranch. And of course at that time, why, the family owned the Irma Hotel, and they owned Pahaska Teepee. And so up until the time my mother and dad died, I was spending my time as a kid here at the T.E. Ranch in Donlin, Cody, and out at Pahaska Teepee. I can't help but remember back just before Granddad died, my mother and father were up here, and all the family. We were assembled out here on the lawn, and my dad picked me up and put me on the bareback horse. And the horse came riding right down through here. In those days there was a clothesline here, and the clothesline caught me and pulled me off the horse. And I remember one time we had a nursemaid take care of we 3 kids, and we were over in the barn here that's still here, hayloft up above, and she was going to have us run the length of the hayloft, and we hit down there, and I hit the door, and I went right down into a pile of manure. So there are a lot of memories up here in the T.E. when the family had it and running it.
Yeah, this was a cattle operation, wasn't it?
It's strictly a cattle, yeah. He bought this from the homesteaders, and then he went over to Sheridan and bought a lot of cattle over there with the T.E. brand, and he bought the T.E. brand along with the cattle. So that's how the ranch got the name T.E. Kurt, come on over here. Dan, I'd like to have you meet Kurt
Bales?
Bales.
Ranch.
Kurt's family came here at the very early at the turn of the century and homesteaded everything and lived here in this valley here. They all knew Granddad well. And now your job is kind of the foreman of the cattle over here.
Yes, I am. That's what I oversee, the ranching part of the operation, and try to run the modern day cows today.
And that has changed, hasn't it?
Oh, there's been a few changes in the industry over the years. It really has.
Fellas, I'm sure that this is where Granddad always stayed. My family, of course, lived over in the bigger house. But Granddad loved it out here. He'd come out and be by himself and do a little reading. And of course, those days it was just a candle to read by or a lantern in some way. And but here's where he came to relax and enjoy it and get away from people.
Yeah.
You know, for all those years, traveling all over Europe, being entertained by the royalty, 30 years showing all over the United States, 7 years across the continent of Europe, and it was a tiring thing. Travel, travel, travel. So he always looked forward to coming back and coming out here to TE Ranch to do his resting and to enjoy it. Always came here in the fall of the year for hunting and enjoyed it very, very much. This was his favorite spot in all the world, I believe.
Join us next week as Americana on Tour continues to explore the West Colonel Cody helped to develop.
Thank you, folks, for joining us up in the Cody country. We'll be seeing you next week.